The goal of the show is to help you break in and thrive in advertising. And we do that every single week by sharing the stories and advice of those rocking it on the other side. And today, we're going behind the work of one of the most meaningful and courageous campaigns we've ever featured on this show. We're joined by Stephanie Marquesano, founder of the Harris Project, and Josh Kornrich, executive producer at Havas New York, to share the story behind The Missing Issue, a campaign that's redefining how the media reports on mental health challenges and substance use issues, and introducing millions to the term co-occurring disorders. It should be live. This campaign should be live right now, making its way across platforms like Ad Age and available to explore through a powerful collaboration with Us Weekly. You'll also see it featured on our daily whiteboard video, but today we go deeper. We're going to explore how this work builds on last year's emotional and raw film that they launched with Havas New York and how The Missing Issue pushes the conversation forward, reframing past media coverage, spotlighting real stories, and opening up space for empathy, understanding, and prevention. If you're someone looking to create work that matters, to tell stories that actually save lives, this episode will resonate with you. From ideation to execution, from loss to action, this is what it looks like when advertising is used as a true force for good. So stay tuned. You will enjoy this. If you go to usmagazine.com and you search up The Missing Issue, it will show up. And if you purchase The Missing Issue hard copy for $8.99, all the proceeds go to the Harris Project, the nonprofit there. So please go ahead and purchase that. It's for a great cause. Now, on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. And as usual, I'm your accomplice, Gino Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. Stephanie Marquesano and Josh Kornrich, welcome to the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. This is our Behind the Work segment. I'm really excited to talk to you today about The Missing Issue and what's going on with this new campaign that should be, at the time people are listening, it should be all out now and all available. Hopefully it's on Ad Age. It'll definitely be here, and then we'll be talking about it on our whiteboard video as well. So we want to make sure people know about this, but then go a little bit deeper into your backgrounds and how this campaign came to life. How does that sound for a run a show?
Sounds great.
Great. Then let's begin with like some light stories here. So Josh, like, starting with you, traditional advertising here. How did you land a role at Havas?
Yeah, my story is going to be far less interesting than Stephanie's story. But I was previously working at Ogilvy as a producer. It was during the beginning of the pandemic and just felt like, it was the time to move on and get a change of scenery. I was there for almost 7 years. Luckily, a friend of Melissa T. Frere, who's the head of production, chief production officer at Havas now, recommended me, and I interviewed Melissa. She and I think, got along enough for her to hire me, and I've been at Havas for 3 years now. And yeah, it's been great.
Fantastic. What is the direct role again? Executive producer?
Executive producer, yep.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. And Stephanie, what inspired you to launch the Harris Project?
So I launched the Harris Project in 2013 after the death of my 19-year-old son, Harris, by accidental overdose. Harris had something called co-occurring disorders. And when a 19-year-old dies in a small suburban community, everybody wants to know where they can make donations and what they could do to support your family. And in the chaos of my household, it was abundantly clear that this was something that every substance use rehab program said that they could treat, and none of them ever got to the mental health piece. So co-occurring disorders is the combination of mental health challenges and substance use issues. I'm an attorney by training. I was a former PTA president, school board member in my community. Harris began struggling with an anxiety disorder when he was 3 years old. He received the ADHD diagnosis when he was in 8th grade. No mental health professionals ever said, good-looking, popular social kid like you, but so much anxiety, you better be careful around substances. That could have been the first and best opportunity for things to be different for us. And so To me, prevention is the home run. Early intervention, getting help and support sooner is ideal. And then if people find themselves with both, getting access to integrated treatment to actually address and treat both is really the way to go. And so that's been my commitment from the beginning.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear about your loss, and thank you so much for sharing about the Harris Project. And I wanted to go back then before we get into the campaign launching today, essentially. I believe last year there was an amazing film with Daniel Wolf. Josh, did you work on that with Stephanie?
I did, yes, yes. So actually, Stephanie and I know each other. Um, I grew up in a town called Ardsley, which is in Westchester County, about 45 minutes north of the city. That's where Stephanie and her family currently live. So that's how Havas and the Harris Project even came together in the first place. Was There's a New York Times, and I'll go on, this will be a quick tangent, but there was a New York Times article that was written about Stephanie and her story and the amazing work that she's doing through her nonprofit. And it kind of just dawned on me that I work in communications, right? And I work at a creative agency, and we have the power to help this nonprofit get the message out when it comes to helping people understand this connection between substance use issues and mental health challenges, co-occurring disorders. So, I had to pitch it up the ladder, and I think everybody wasn't sure where it was going to go, but through a rigorous creative process, we got to that drinking game construct, and um, yeah, I ultimately worked on it, produced it, and I love that film. It's really kind of it's a really beautiful, painful, visceral understanding of what the kaleidoscopic roller coaster is that is co-occurring disorders. Um, so it was done with the utmost of care, and every line was written basically from the real experience of either somebody who had firsthand experience with co-occurring disorders, or a family member, a friend, a loved one with secondhand experience. So yeah, that was kind of the catalyst that built the foundation to get us to where we are now, doing this year two work that we're super excited about.
Yeah.
And the one really interesting thing about it was, everyone's like, so what's the ask? And the ask was simple. I mean, I have the only nonprofit in the nation on behalf of 21 million people with co occurring disorders. The vision was you can't prevent something you've never heard of. And so, if you've never heard of co occurring disorders, the first step is educating the nation on what it is. And so, I think that the drinking game, the film itself, the you don't know the half of it component was so critical to the work. And for people in recovery who've seen that film, they say that there has been nothing they've ever seen that has come closer to personify the experience that they went through. That hero went through so many different iterations of struggle that represented so many people that it connected with.
I think that's a big point, and something that, especially in our industry, we're very hyper aware of. It feels like a PSA, or it feels like I'm trying to spoon feed you a message, and that was something we didn't want. It was like it had to feel really real and authentic, and I think the film did a really good job representing the real experience. And even with the missing issue, the same rigor was brought to that, right? Obviously a wildly different partner, a lot of Daniels overlapping, which we can get to, but it's that same lens of, you have to take this a serious approach, but serious when it comes to making sure this is credible and making sure this is authentic, because it's such a personal experience. You're talking about the most sensitive of topics.
Yes, yes. And then let's dive now into, well, before that, I just want to make sure everybody listening, they know where to find the film from last year. Is there a specific spot that they can go to watch it? I mean, I saw it on Ad Age when they released it last year, but where can they go to find that film?
So it lives on my homepage on my website at theharrisproject.org, and it also lives on our YouTube channel at the Harris Project also. And it's the full-length version. There's a version with the beep. There are 60-second and 30-second versions that a lot of people haven't had the chance to see, but they're all there.
Okay, great. And I mean, this is, our a major portion of our audience are the aspiring advertising professionals, maybe in college or just breaking into college or looking for their job outside of college, that really that 18 to 28-year-old range. I think this will be a really helpful episode for them all. So we must talk about the missing issue, because it is so beautifully done and so powerful that Josh and your team at Havas New York has collaborated with Stephanie. This kind of second iteration from the film last year. So who wants to kind of talk about like the initial ask and or how the idea came to life and what that idea was? What was the lead up, and then where did you all land?
I think I can talk about a little bit of the beginning, and then Stephanie, we can get into how we landed on it. But like we said, the film was this really beautiful, authentic um, sort of way of representing co-occurring disorders, right? And I think we all were super proud of it, and it's something that we show, and Stephanie can continue to show, in her field, right? I think our ambition for the second year was, how do we really permeate culture? How can we get people at large to fundamentally understand this connection? And that might sound like bullshit ambition, right? Every creative, and creative agency has aspiration for their work to be seen by millions. But I think for us, it was even a more critical lens of really how do we, um, you know, penetrate culture. I think that's really what the brief was. Obviously, there's more nuance to that. I think awareness was still we're still at an awareness deficit, right? In terms of people really understanding that these two things are connected. Um, but that was kind of a wide open brief, which creatives are licking their chops at, because it's like, well, that sounds pretty good, right? We saw a ton of ideas. A that sounds exciting, but it's also extremely difficult to get this right, because how do you find the right balance? How do you make it interesting? How do you make it so that it is still tied to the Harris Project, and you're finding that balance so it's not too tied to any given entity or celebrity. So ultimately, in October-ish is when we went to Stephanie with three different ideas, um, different scale, different range. And ultimately, we tried to keep it open, but we really loved this idea, which has had 10 different names, but we'll go with the missing issue for now. But the idea has always remained the same, which was, how can we look through the lens of media being a huge way that we consume information. It is a huge way for people to, um, make informed decisions and uh, make judgments and perceptions, good or bad. And if we can change the way the media reports on this, we can change the way society views this at large, right? And we did a deep dive, and there is a long history of the media fixating on the drugs, the addiction, and sensationalizing that, right? And while in recent years the mental health portion has gotten better in terms of awareness and reporting on it, the connection between substance use and mental health challenges is still not understood. Um, so that was the heart of the idea. I could ramble on about how we got to Us Weekly and all that, but Stephanie, I don't know if you want to talk about kind of your first impression of when we presented you the work.
Yeah, so I will say that the "You Don't Know the Half of It" drinking game, when that was pitched to me originally, it was a home run. There had been other things that we had talked about, but when that opportunity came, it was 100% like my gut was like, this is the direction we're going. Similarly, when I came in and met with Havas in person and they had a series of ideas, the Us Weekly piece was the thing that I literally said, forget about everything else. And I felt bad because obviously people spend a lot of time working on those other things, but I'm like, this is it. And I think you may be wondering, well, why were you so sure that this is it? So what I say is there are very few things that most people have never heard of that impacts this many people. How do you make sure that the most number of people get to hear about it? And I have said through the years, whoever it is that's first in really introducing this to the nation in this kind of scale is going to change culture forever. I didn't know if it was going to be a sports team or a league. I didn't know if it was going to be a musician or a group. When Us Weekly was on that brief, I said, are you kidding? I am somebody who follows celebrities. I've looked at life and death, in a really profound way, given my lived experience with my son. And I thought, this is the way to do this. And I did not know that Havas already had their meeting set up with Dan Wakeford. And so the fact that this was like such a gut reaction for me, which Josh is very used to, it's like I am a go with the gut kind of client. And so it was really easy to just move forward with that.
Yeah, that's so powerful. So then for those that need some more context here, you then the idea was to work and partner with Us Weekly, with the editor himself, Dan Wakeford, where they were going to revisit past stories of celebrity overdoses, deaths, and rewrite those stories to talk about the co-occurring disorders that were not previously told. Is this correct? How many stories? Can you help me clarify this so our listeners understand how powerful this truly is?
Yeah, totally. What I will say is, first of all, so it's 14 total stories. It's a mix of celebrities that have overdosed and who are actually alive and, on the better side of it, right? So I think it's important just for that to be told because this isn't just a one-way street when it comes to it's an inevitable death, right? There is hope. There is a way to get better. There is a way to live a fulfilled life, right? And there are like a Drew Barrymore or Demi Lovato. These are celebrities that are succeeding now, right? So there is that. The name The Missing Issue comes from the fact that when we looked back at these stories, there was something missing, which was that was the connection, right? Was understanding that their substance use and their mental health challenges were linked. And so, with a lot of them, what you'll see is on the left hand side of the spread, the previously published article from Us Weekly. So, let's say they reported on Juice World's overdose in 2020. And then you'll see on the right hand side the new article, the updated article, which is being published tomorrow, March 26, 2025, that will have a new headline that connects the mental health struggles and the substance use issues. Um, and will often spell out literally that this celebrity struggled with co-occurring disorders. The articles have been rewritten. Um, again, extensive research was done, hours and hours, fact checking to make sure that everything was accurate, that we are telling this story truthfully, and um, that we are bringing the reader the net new information, right? Even for some of them, a Liam Payne, for example, Liam Payne talked about his mental health struggles, right? And Liam Payne's substance use was very public. I think he may have tried to say it in some of his TikToks and social media videos, but the press never connected these two things. That's the huge realization that we're hoping readers understand. But it's also not just celebrity articles, right? Stephanie was amazing in being able to help us source the stories of real people who have either experienced loss or are working in the field or you know are working with the Harris Project directly. And that's a huge thing for us, is that um, whether you're a celebrity or whether you're a quote everyday person, you can be impacted by co-occurring disorders. It is something that affects 20 million Americans. It affects far more than that, but that's how the data is collected. So that number will jump up once they don't collect the data in silos, but it's something that affects everybody. So it's a super exciting magazine. It's been designed very carefully. It's extremely informative. It's worth reading every word of it. It's not just pretty to look at, although it is. But Stephanie, I don't know if there's anything else you want to expand upon.
I do want to just make sure that it's clear that we're not really, not we, but Us Weekly and Havas, they're not rewriting history. They're really reframing the conversation. This, maybe what was reported in the past was factual, but it was often sensationalized. It was not, it was stigmatizing. There was shaming and blaming that was like sitting as the undercurrent. This is really a more empathetic and compassionate approach. It's more human. I think that Us Weekly has the celebrities just like us kind of like tagline to a lot of what they do. And I think that this is really the opportunity to say, celebrities don't know what co-occurring disorders is either right now. And so this education and empowerment opportunity really gets people to reflect on what they're doing. I mean, Ariana Grande is not in this piece, but she did her documentary and really talked about the fact that every child star should get mental health support. Well, they should also be educated about the risks of substance use, that if you have an existing or an emerging mental health challenge, that substance use can be really, really challenging. Like, my hope, as the mom with a nonprofit, is that everybody that doesn't have a fully developed brain is abstinent from substances, and those with mental health challenges in particular, knowing that that's not necessarily realistic, but getting people to think about their why. Why am I using this? What am I doing? I thought I was just experimenting. I thought it would help me feel better. And now this is a problem for me. And getting that help and support earlier, that early intervention piece, that's really a large part of this as well.
And that
Absolutely.
even through these tragedies, right, of these beautiful, amazing, talented people who we lost, the stories were written where there is, even though it is again a difficult topic, there is still an in the end some through line of hope, right? Whether it's Aaron Carter's sister and what she's doing on behalf of his legacy, or Matthew Perry's foundation that they've established, right? It's not just this finality. Cooper Noriega, who was a kind of TikTok star, right? His parents have really committed their lives to this. It's not just the end of the road, right? Their stories do continue. It's the same thing with Harris's story, right? Stephanie's son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, the silver lining is, and I feel Harris sort of on my shoulder, is that we have the chance to impact a whole generation and to really change the trajectory of outcomes for people out of the gate. Like Cooper, I'll use him as an example. He was a TikTok star who I followed before he died. I was particularly interested in his own reflection of his substance use and mental health. I was really interested in the Discord that he started and really working towards getting young people to think about these things. He didn't know that it was called co-occurring disorders at the time, but he understood it. And so he might not have typically been part of this Us Weekly campaign, but I reached out to his parents and I had already had a dialogue with them. And, his mom was on set when we shot You Don't Know the Half of It. And there are some pieces of Harris's, stuff in the set, and there are pieces of Cooper's stuff. And they really wanted to honor his legacy as well, because when you read the piece about him, his first person narrative about understanding co-occurring disorders without saying it is so abundantly clear. And that's kind of the power, is that you've got somebody who died at 19, and then you have a Matthew Perry who was in his 50s. And so you're really seeing how long the struggle can go, and how really with change and education and empowerment and systems work, we can make things better.
Yeah. It's powerful. I'm curious then, like what were like, and were there any creative or strategic challenges like faced and that you had to overcome with this specific campaign? give some background. And I think why I'm asking that is you kind of have to fight for these good, powerful ideas, and it might not be very easy. But I want to hear both your perspectives on stuff that you overcame on both sides here.
I mean, I think, look, generally there were times where it was stressful or we were pushing things here and there, but like the idea was so clean in its origin that there were little things that we shifted or nuanced here and there. But generally speaking, it really is the original iteration of the idea. Like
Wow.
I looking back, so that's like a testament to the power of the idea. I think what was interesting about the process was just, you're working with Us Weekly, you're working with the Harris Project and Havas, right? That's three entities, and everybody brings their own perspective. I'll use
Mhm.
that word, and everybody um, has different sensibilities based on, the line of work that they're in. So I think navigating that line, at least from my perspective, was the most challenging. I think, and Stephanie, I hope this is the case. We've mostly, I'd say 90% aligned and been synergistic. And that's a hell of a lot better than how it ends up most of the case. But I, I think it was a lot of work. It's a magazine in less than 3 months. Us Weekly was even like, oh shit, right? This is fast to do a 48-page magazine, designed and essentially written from scratch. And we had out of home, we had a film component, social posts, the .com integration, PR push. It's a full 360 campaign, but generally speaking, I think we really did keep the integrity of the creative. Um, so that I think is something we can be very proud of.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, there was a lot of, careful wordsmithing, making sure that we're saying mental health challenges, substance use issues, staying away from sort of the traditional stigmatizing language. But other than that, I mean, Havas brought me into the office with Dan Wakeford. We met, we talked. I mean, he was teary and really committed to the cause. And I think it doesn't get better than that. I think if I had to pick, a partner to work on this with, to have an editor in chief who so deliberately and carefully cares, and not just about the parts of this that I care about, but also the journalistic standards piece of this, really making sure that they're setting the bar in a way that maybe hasn't been done before. And so when I was on set at Us Weekly with Dan, I actually, there was a piece, he had done an interview when he first took over as editor in chief, and I'm gonna share this with you because I really think that it's such a powerful nugget. He said the people we want to bring in are all aware that celebrity and entertainment, it's not brain science. We're not saving the world. Well, now you've got a mom at her kitchen table who is not a celebrity, Harris, who is not in the public eye, and you have created a chance to truly save the world. You really are one conversation at a time, impacting lives in ways that you can never really imagine. I mean, I hear from a lot of people who've been impacted by the Harris Project on the prevention side with our co-occurring disorders awareness, and then having brought integrated treatments to my county. And so I get to see some of those moments of, wow, things have really changed. I don't know if Us Weekly and Dan will ever really be able to understand the impact that this is making, but they are truly saving the world, as is Havas for taking this on. I mean, again, you commit your pro bono dollars, you look at what campaigns you want to take on for the cause. And this is truly, I mean, to me, such a surreal experience to have this level of commitment.
At the same time, from a creative perspective, it's like when you can do something that is such a powerful idea and something that is visually and conceptually so stunning, but it actually can help impact people. That's like a pretty rare convergence. I think it, sometimes we get so caught up in the work and the craft, and to take a step back and say, this magazine could actually reach one person in some small town that would never have understood this connection. And whether it's them personally experiencing this or a friend that they've known, oh my God, this makes so much sense. Why are they at the party overdoing it? It's clear they're self-medicating for some mental health challenge that they're dealing with, right? Like if we can do that, that's so incredible and something that uh it is just a game changer that you can do big, beautiful campaigns, yet if it could save one life, that's pretty incredible.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. So, my last question for both of you is, what do you hope the lasting impact of the missing issue will be on the media, on the advertising industry, and the society at large? What's the goal?
You can go first, Josh.
You should end it, yeah, because you'll have a beautiful sweeping statement. But I think for us, and I mean us as in Havas and the Harris Project, not Us Weekly, it is something that there's no idea that's uh, unattainable, right? You can think really big and go for it, right? And we went for it. Obviously, we got lucky along the way, and enlisting a partner like Us Weekly was very fortunate. But the power of the idea is what did this for them, not because of uh, relationships or smooth talking, right? Um, I think on a larger legacy standpoint, if we can change the way journalism can actually report on this, um, and that's not just Us Weekly, but if other journalistic entities see this and see, oh, Us Weekly is the first and the trailblazer in this to change the way we see these two issues in silos, that would be tremendous, right? Um, because it'll only have a trickle down effect from larger media into communities and everyday people. I know I'm saying everyday people. I'm not trying to minimalize them, but you get my point. That can understand, see this differently, and we can approach everything differently. That's understanding the issue, that's preventing the issue, that's treating the issue, right? Um, if we can change perception at the onset, those other two pillars will fall after that. Um,
Great.
so that's my hope.
Wonderful.
And
Stephanie?
for me, I mean, I've been doing this for 11 years. The Harris Project really hit its stride probably about 7 years ago. And so, on one hand, it's really, stay the course. Like, it's not easy. Not everybody was so sure how we were going to get there. The really good news is that collaborating with government, with consumers, with practitioners in mental health and substance use, working with an ad agency like Havas New York, it was very clear that the right people might not have been sure how we were going to get here, but it was really important to get it done. And I think that this, again, is an opportunity for people across the country to read about this through the eyes of those that they might have followed through the years, people that they've seen, heard about, read about, but maybe didn't really understand what was going on. Co-occurring disorders as a concept is really, really easy to understand, right? Mental health plus substance use equals co-occurring disorders. You can get it because you have an existing or emerging mental health challenge. You're part of that, 50% of young people who have a mental health challenge. Maybe you're in the middle, you're part of that second pathway. You've got a mental health challenge and a substance use challenge at the same time. And maybe that's genetics and family history and biology. So how do you break intergenerational cycles where there are going to be people reading this that are going to be thinking about family members that they have, young people in their family that they want to guide to do things differently. And then, we leave out the third path, which is really the brain changes caused by use. So you might not have anything going on. There might not be a mental health challenge at all, or maybe it's just, a small little thing simmering. You can use substances and bring on a mental health challenge or make them worse. So these moments in time where you can stop and think about your relationship, your choice to say no, when you say yes, what that might do, that lives on. And that will live on and on and on. Having, expert advice inside the issue, having the know the signs, reading about my story. Maybe you're thinking, well, I'm not like a celebrity. is this happening to real people? You get to see that as well. And so I think there's something in there for everybody. And I think the message really is that if you believe in something strongly enough and you stay the course and you align yourself with the right people, the change is going to happen.
I love it. Stephanie, Josh, thank you so much for sharing behind the work here. Where can people find this edition and purchase it?
So if you go on usmagazine.com/the missing issue, that's where the digital version of the magazine will be. If you go on Us Weekly's magazine shop, you can purchase the magazine. It's a limited run, so get it while it's hot. And all proceeds will be donated to the Harris Project. So not only are you reading a beautiful magazine, but you're also supporting an important foundation.
Stephanie, how can people learn more if they want to get involved, want to dive into your content? Where do they go?
So you can go to theharrisproject.org to learn everything there is to know. You can reach me at stephanie@theharrisproject.org. We are vibrant on Instagram at the Harris Project COD. And on TikTok, we're starting to hit our stride. And so you can find us there also at the Harris Project COD.
Well, thank you both so much for coming on again. I wish you all the best. And if anybody has questions, I hope they can reach out to you all and say hello. And that's that. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Gina.
Yeah.